But today, talking about Paul Kaufman, he's one of the Packers' great tight ends, and he's a Packer Hall of Famer. But before we get there, let's talk about the potential Hall of Fame candidates that have just come out yesterday. And this has a lot of implications regarding the Packers. Peter, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think that, as always with these things, when they get to the semi-final stage, the 25 semi-finalists, it's you look down the list, and if you try and put a personal bias or a team bias to one side, and you can almost make a case for any of the 25, which is why I guess they're in the semi-final. Yeah. There's a couple of the guys that are eligible for the first time this year that seem like they're certainties to go in to me, which will be Peyton Manning and Charles Woodson. And Calvin Johnson's a first timer this year, and I think he's got a very good shot at getting in. But beyond those two or three, I think you can almost pick two or three from the remaining 22, 23 players. I think it's a hugely talented list.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on those two being in the first ballot there?
They'll go in. Absolutely. There's no question in my mind that they're absolute, as close to locks as anybody can be. If there's 100, if there's a 99.999999% thing, it's those two guys, and I don't think there's any doubt that they both go in, which is kind of fitting that they would go in together, because they battled for that Heisman Trophy back in 1997 together, or against each other. So it's kind of fitting that all these years later, 23, 24 years later, that they would go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame together, and they will.
Yeah. So that's good to hear from Woodson's side. Now, what about the other hero, Leroy Butler?
I think this comes down to numbers, because I think that so I would imagine that Alan Faneca, the Pittsburgh guard, will go in this year. So he's been a finalist for the last few years and hasn't quite made it, but I think he'll probably go in this year. And then you're left with two slots. And I think from a voter's perspective, part of it will be whether they shouldn't do this, but I think it's probably human nature, whether they do this comparison thing with John Lynch, who's on the list. Now, for me, and I accept I have a Packers bias, but I think that Butler should go in before Lynch, and I think Butler should have gone in before Atwater last year. But I do have a Packer bias, absolutely.